And it's because the winter really changes things up. But we do have a lot of control over it if we understand it. And we can actually leverage that season and increase our well-being, increase our health or wealth, whatever it is that we're seeking, when we understand it. And when we create mechanisms to create an ideal routine on that specific environment. So here's where my story kind of kicks in.
Hey guys, are you feeling burnt out or wanting a quick break away from the daily grind? Well, our friends over at Cyro Boca Place offer the ultimate destination for those seeking a blend of luxury wellness, adventure, and restoration. If you know me, you know I'm fully invested in health and well-being. So if you don't prioritize yourself first, how are you supposed to be showing up for others around you? Looking for an experience like this, head over to www.cyrohotels.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your podcast host, Luke Beastall, and I think you guys are going to start to really relate to Ruben. I'm going to introduce him because there's a lot of similarities in how we operate day to day in our business. I'm not going to give too much away, but just to give you a bit of an intro to him, we did connect through social media. He is a transformational coach. He has actually said it's been 15 years of his life's work. Now it's been launched online for the past 6 months. It's been a 5-year project. It is called the Seasonal Movement, which I think probably you're already going to think, seasonal movement, what does this mean? What does that look like? We will be delving into where this actually stemmed from, but ultimately, who is Ruben? What's brought Ruben to this place today? Now, also to let you know, he actually left his home country 15 years ago. So practically half of his life now has been moved over to the Midwest of the States, and he is a family man. He's very much about presence. It's actually more about like rhythm over routine, which I think is pretty cool. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm really, really excited for it. And Ruben, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Luke. I appreciate the opportunity to share what we're working on, who I am, show myself real here, a safe space, and hopefully inspire and change perceptions. That's really all I'm about when I go into a new space is how can I help the audience change perception just a little bit? Because I touch on something that we all know, but it's very poorly understood. Like we don't go too deep into it. So I want to go deep and really express from the bottom of my heart, why is this important?
Absolutely. So obviously, yeah, it's definitely a safe space. So when you said there about a topic that seems or deemed as a bit surface level, maybe people don't understand it clearly, could you just let the audience in on, exactly what that is and what could give them a bit of insight on?
Okay, perfect. The seasonal movement, what does that mean?
Yes.
The reason for the movement towards the end is because I really want to make this a people's movement. I want to change the perception of humanity and society about how we look into the seasons. Now, the reason the seasons are important is all backed by science. Essentially, epigenetics. So epigenetics is like this big term. It kind of became popular over, I'd say like 30, 40 years ago. And it's essentially the acknowledgement that even though our genes are very important, like who we are, how we're born, like what makes our DNA is extremely important, there is something else that is very important as well from a health perspective. You know it. If you exercise, you feel a certain way, the way your body shapes, the way your mind follows your feelings. So what is that? Well, the environment. The environment is what shapes and turns on and off, it activates or deactivates our gene expression. So what is the environment is the next question. The environment is a combination of whatever is happening on the outside, the exterior world, the lighting that comes from the sun that changes, the social environments. Think about it. Like that's not something we think too often, but our social environment creates a big impact in who we are. And then on top of that, our lifestyle, or exercise, or nutrition, or sleep, that's a huge one.
Yes.
So there's these components. And what I found interesting, so here's where my story kind of kicks in. And is that I am from Venezuela. I moved out to the Midwest. The first 3-4 years, everything is new. Everything is exciting. I'm going to college, playing sports, getting married, having a great life. But after that, I started noticing that I was feeling kind of weird. What's going on with me? Why I'm feeling this way? And I remember very clearly during a winter, I look out the window, it's gray, it's gloomy, it's wet. And I was isolated at that time. Like, I didn't have good habits. I wasn't going outside as much. I wasn't working out. And I was basically feeling anxious, confused, depressed, kind of wondering, because I have always been an entrepreneur, very driven, ambitious, and I'm kind of stuck here. Going, why I'm not getting traction. I never felt this way. What's wrong with me? Like, really, I felt something was wrong with me. I tell my wife, and she goes back to me and she says, "Oh, sweetie, you just have the winter blues." Like, what is the winter blues? I have no idea. That's what I think makes me different, is that I move up from a summer-like environment into a 4-season place, and I was completely ignorant. That, my friend, is what got me interested in understanding the seasons. Because for a decade, I started to basically notice, experiment, pay attention, and I realized I live in like 4 different places, because every time the environment changes, the seasons change, I feel differently. My routines are different. The social interactions change dramatically. Essentially, it's like I'm a different person. So the reason the seasons are important is because that's the pattern that we have recognized as a society, that we can chunk the year in 4 seasons from the perspective of how the environment changes. So that became my obsession. It's like, okay, if I want to be the best version of myself, I have to figure this seasonal thing out. Like, I am a different person. I move different. I eat differently. So I start diving into the science. I start diving into basically becoming very self-aware of those changes. Because remember, I just came from knowing absolutely nothing. And increasing that awareness takes time. It took me over a decade to really kind of figure things out. At the beginning, I thought it was the winter. You know, the winter is the enemy. I think that we can all relate to that. Oh, the winter sucks. Or, you know, at any given point in our life, we have been there, whether you are there still or not. You probably thought that at any given point. And it's because the winter really changes things up. But we do have a lot of control over it if we understand it. And we can actually leverage that season and increase our well-being, increase our health or wealth, whatever it is that we're seeking, when we understand it. And when we create mechanisms to create an ideal routine on that specific environment. So, you know, we live into, this is my routine, this is what I do, I wake up at this time, I go to sleep at this time. From a chronobiology perspective, what I learned is that the sun changes dramatically throughout the year. Where I live, it gets dark by 4:30 in the winter, and then it gets dark by like 9 p.m. in the summer. And that changes our hormones. There is an actual biological response happening in the back of our brain that we don't realize. It's subconscious, but we have what we call our circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour clock that uses the lighting and the environment to adjust. So when we follow one routine that is like the whole year the same, or when we don't realize that we are supposed to adjust, we get out of rhythm. That's when we feel stuck. Like, oh my gosh, I learned this new habit and things are going great. I'm doing great in my family, my business, my health. And then all of a sudden you realize what just happened. That was like a month ago and now everything sucks. Like, I can't get out of bed at the time I was getting out of bed to go work out. The energy is dropping. My friend, if you look around your life and you realize nothing has changed in your finances, your family, and what has changed is the environment, that is a signal that you're out of alignment. And what you can do very practically is adjust your routine to that specific environment. So that has been perhaps the conclusion I have arrived through my own life experiences. And as I started to talk to friends and advise them at an early stage, I realized, wow, 3 years later, these guys are still coming back to me saying, yeah, I do this and I do this and I'm having a really good week or I'm having a really good season. If I wouldn't have done that, I would be stuck. And I realized, wow, there is something here. I'm not the only one. So that's what led me into, wow, I feel a sense of purpose into creating this for everybody. Because I don't hear anybody else talking about it. So yeah, that's kind of the story why the seasonal movement started. And it's a purpose-driven movement to make awareness at a high level of how to adapt our routines to the season so we can be the best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. I really like that, Ruben. Thanks for sharing. I mean, I know obviously the guys listening, and just to put it out there, the UK is very grey, you know, dull and gloomy and just going into winter months. Yeah, it's pretty yeah, you could say it's pretty depressing at times, right? And, like you say, getting dark at 4:30, light's more limited. Probably over here, it could be even as early as, 3:30. From you said early on, your wife had noticed a bit of a change in you. She's sort of seen Ruben probably get a bit maybe down, and obviously you've always been entrepreneurial, maybe you've always been creative, always been out there. Because obviously you're talking about awareness here. When did you know in yourself as a human that, look, something's changing in me here and I don't like it, and it is affecting I don't know if it was affecting people around you, maybe you can enlighten us on that. And what was sort of the first step? Who did you talk to? Was there anybody guiding you? Was there any sort of, I'd just love to know that from your start. Because obviously now you're so far on and you've got all the tools and, you're helping people, which is great. I'd just love to hear your starting point.
That is why I'm doing this, because my wife tells me, you have the winter blues. Okay, now what? Now I know that I have a problem. Now I have to learn about it. So I go online and I start researching. And this was over a decade ago, so there wasn't that much information. It feels like that subject has become a little more trendy or more accepted. The same with seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
It has become more popularized, like, hey, this is an issue, guys. But the solutions are more related towards, medication sometimes, in some cases. In other cases, it's more like the blue light will help you, the happy light. So essentially, the solution out there is more of like a biohack, supplementation. And what I found is that is actually the last thing to do. Meaning, okay, you can do it, it's going to help you, but it's not the underlying issue. It's like trying to build a house without having a proper foundation. So let me give you a very clear example, and is that when I told my wife I have the winter blues, 2 weeks leading to that point, I was waking up early. I'm an entrepreneur, so I work from home. The less structure we have, the worse it gets. And when we're entrepreneurs and we don't have to show up to work or do certain things, we have a lot of freedom, and that was me at that time. I will wake up, my wife will go to work, and I will spend like 2 or 3 hours in bed, anxious and confused about what do I do next? Where do I go from here? Then I will get out of bed, get some breakfast, and I will sit on the computer. I will work for like 3 hours, and my heart will just start beating. I will be anxious, and then I shut the computer, go take a nap for, a few hours in the afternoon. The day goes by, eat dinner, and then I can't go to sleep at night. Now, that is essentially a very bad routine. Whether it is because of the way I was feeling, but from the outside, just look at the routine itself. It really leads towards a negative outcome. And when the season is difficult, like in that moment, that time of the year, it makes that issue even bigger. So at the time I got the problem, I started to do some research. There wasn't really anything hitting me that I would say, okay, this guy understands me. There were some medical papers. There were a lot of scientists talking about it, the importance of the blue light and how you can do certain things. But there wasn't really somebody dedicating themselves to educate me and to tell me, like, this is how you're feeling. I have been there. This is what you can do. These are practical steps. Because realize that at the time I had some extra income. Like, I was doing okay financially. I'm a real estate investor, and I was still doing things, but I knew I had more inside of me. I knew that I started to realize that it was a bunch of ups and downs. That's like the best way to describe it. It's
That's
lot of ups.
That's life, though, man. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, but imagine actually going in that roller coaster without any guidance, perhaps, or without any good routines. Like, your routine becomes your guidance, perhaps. It's like what gets you in alignment. You're still going to have those ups and downs, but now so I can explain you now how I have noticed the roller coaster should look like compared to what it was. So I noticed, wow, I have to do something. Now, at the time, the issue was the winter. Again, it took me a decade to realize this is an all year round thing. And that is kind of the transitioning point for me to go from the winter project, because that's what I thought I was dealing with, to the seasonal movement. So at first, it's just the winter, that's a problem. And then I realized, wow, it's that the environment is constantly changing. It's just not in the winter. It constantly changes. Like, we lose 2 minutes, 3 minutes of daylight every single day, or we gain them. The interesting thing that I found out is that there is a pattern. So from a managerial perspective, if you have a pattern, you can project it. You can actually plan for it. You can see ahead, and you can create a perhaps a process, a system that leverages that environment. So that is like high level, right? That is like 15 years on the making. But at the time, I didn't found that guy. And I just kind of had to do it all on my own. Learn about, our biology, learn about circadian rhythms, learn about different sciences that study and touch on this. For example, one of them is Chinese traditional medicine. They talk big time in this, in like how your body reacts to it, even from the point of this is what you can be eating during this time. So basically creating that for myself is kind of what helped me move on from there.
So it seems to me as though that when you had felt this way, so what had initially started out as the winter blues, Ruben, eventually became quite a deeper thing. You was self-taught, you was doing a lot of this research on your own. I'd just love to know because, a lot of people, I guess in more today's society, it's really hard to sort of, keep going when there's no sort of understanding or being listened to or heard. So, what kept you going? Like, what kept you thinking, there's got to be something in this?
Yeah, there is an actual moment. There is a moment, a very dramatic moment I'm going to get to here. But at the time, I just want you to understand that I have my business. I was actually spending more time in practical ways of getting better at real estate than on my own personal well-being and understanding myself and how improve myself. So I kept going to courses and kept doing things and kept growing my portfolio, and that was going well, but I knew I had more inside of me. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I thought it was the winter. That's the issue. I would say this happens about, 5 years ago. I got to a point in my life that I started to travel more in the winter. So we went to Mexico, me and my family, we rented a beachfront and we spent there a month and a week, I think. And every single day I was laying on the sun. It's like January in Baja California, beautiful place. And I would be just working there on the beach. And then from there, flying to Texas, went into a personal development seminar. A really good one is experiential. A lot of like leave it so that you transform and rewire your brain as you're doing it. It's not like, hey, this is all the knowledge. We can get most of that from books, but living through it is what truly rewires our brain. Mm-hmm. There's an awareness factor that happens, and then experiencing and putting the dots together. That's how you transform. Part of the seminar there was a portion where there was like, hey, this is honest, brutal, man-to-man feedback. This is how you're coming across. So I got the feedback, and then they sent us for a 48-hour fast solo camping trip. So you are by yourself, 48 hours, you just have your notebook, and that's it. You are not moving, you are not eating, you're just drinking water, and you and your thoughts.
Wow.
That's the moment I realized, wow, this is like the yin yang. The reason that I experienced the low points in the wintertime is because I also experienced the high points in the summer. And then I realized this is a year-round cycle. Now, at the time, I realized even worse than that, since I don't have this in good alignment, in good harmony, then I have all these ups and downs throughout the year. It's like everything goes back to the medium. Like if you go really high, you have to go really low. And if you go really high, really quick, you're going to go down you're going to go down quick too. So what I realized, what I know now, again, now I'm talking, right now is this is like the yin yang. Like we are supposed to experience those ups and downs, but in a harmonious, controlled manner. And again, the yin yang expresses that beautifully because the yin yang, if you put it horizontally, it starts in the winter, in the lower portion of that curve, where the black is the biggest, the dark, the winter, and then it just kind of progresses. It gets into the summer when the white is the biggest, and then it comes down again in the fall. So I realized, wow, my goal is to honor that energy, to understand that pattern, to get into it, but make it harmonious, not just this crazy roller coaster. Because sure, there's ups and downs throughout life, but there is an actual way that if we understand how the environment works and how our neurochemicals and our brain works in reaction to it, and we create healthy routines, how we can actually mimic that harmonious yin-yang curve. And that's really what I'm here for. That's what gets me excited. That's what I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, but other than that, this is the work of my life and what has given meaning. And that's kind of what I want to help men really get to understand, because there's nobody really talking about it. But I have found based on my own success, that is a very powerful philosophy and mindset to have.
The way you talk about it, man, there's obviously purpose and passion and depth behind it, which I just know that, well, probably, I mean, obviously we can't have the listeners in live right now, but I'm pretty damn certain that they're going to have lots and lots and lots of questions for you just off that. Just from where I'm at then, just because, listen, I would definitely say I'm a man that, struggles in the English winter months. Absolutely. The dark grey moments. Do you know how you said you took that trip out to Mexico for like 5 weeks? When you look back on that upon reflection, would you say that was the answer? That would help you, but then actually that wasn't the true? Do you know how like some people externally try and fix it by materialistic things, whatever it may be, but actually find that that's not the real answer? Yeah. What shifted for you?
So whether you put your hope on a happy light, right? Like, the happy light is the solution, or whether it is vitamin D is the solution, or whether you put the focus on, I'm just going to go away and live 6 months here, 6 months there. Now, there is something that we can learn from this. Like, truly, there is a beautiful lesson behind this. And if we are able to master it, we completely dominate, like we go up in our own awareness about, or, in wisdom. There's a beautiful thing here, and that's an opportunity. It's like, how can we understand this to become more wise, to become a better person? And is that I went through a 10-year experimentation process. This wasn't the only trip I took, we went down to Phoenix other years, and I will do that. But again, it's like what I'm trying to do is perhaps medicate the issue that I have. So we all have inside of us both masculine, feminine. We all have inside of us more dominant traits, but there is a mix of everything. It's not like we are just, for example, a feminine trait might be like, hey, I am actually artistic. Like, I know how to design. I know how to create videos, or, I'm good on my craft. That's kind of, feminine. So the beauty of this is also that in the winter time, we have an opportunity. It's essentially a calling to get deep within ourselves. When you look into Chinese traditional medicine, you understand that the energy of the winter is one of introspection, is one of rest. And when you look at it from a practical perspective, you realize you do have more time on your hands. Somehow social interactions kind of go down, they dim, quite significant for some people, or just, for everybody, they dim down. There is less visual distractions, like the environment is gray and it's kind of dull, There's not all these bird sounds happening. There is not all this pop of color happening. It is kind of monotonous. So even in nature, in the winter time, the trees, their energy goes down to their roots. That's what they drop their leaves so they can survive the winter. A lot of animals go into hibernation. And when you look at the evolution of humans, we will go into, quote unquote, hibernation as well. We had to be able to survive. So there is a lot that is happening in our brain at a subconscious level that we don't realize. Even the way that we eat, or cravings, they change with the seasons. So there is opportunities on every single season. And as I'm talking about the winter, the opportunity in the winter is for you to perhaps dive into yourself, dive into your business, analyze what's going on, look back. Did I did what I wanted to do this year? Am I going in the direction that I want to be leading my life towards? Let me test this new thing here and see if it works. And then when you do that kind of work and you understand that the spring has a different energy, the summer has a different energy, and the fall has a different energy, you realize that it's not like you are resting during the winter. You're just doing a different kind of work. I mean, you're still showing up, putting the reps, but perhaps you are not working on the reps 12 hours a day, which is great if you do it in the summer, perhaps. But in the winter, maybe you're working 8 hours a day, but you're still working inside. So it's like a lot of internal growth that can happen in that specific season. And it's about becoming comfortable with that. The issue is that in this society, we applaud success on the exterior. Like, okay, you did 20 podcasts today. You had so many sales today. You produced so much today. Good job. If you are not in alignment to where you actually want to go in life, that's completely worthless. You're going in all directions, or you're going in the wrong direction, which is even worse. So understanding that and using the seasons in that manner, trusting the process, it's kind of like flowing down the river instead of swimming against it. An example of that would be that in my real estate business, I will always kind of redo my marketing, advertising, and sales process every winter. Why? Because in my market, the winter just tanks. People don't want to move when it's frigid, when it's windy, when it's snowy. And that is a seasonal market that happens everywhere. How do I know this? It happens on every industry. Why? Because it's just human psychology. We, as humans, are wired to have a little less of that, spontaneous, fast activity during certain seasons in the winter. So being able to go deep in there and understanding this is a long-term game. Like you can still be doing what you're doing that works, but this is going to help you become a better person, become a wiser person. And you can have a bigger impact when you're leading into the right direction. So once you move into the spring, guess what's going to happen? You already did all that work that comes very naturally and is very convenient. Now, the most convenient thing to do in the spring is just like nature. Everything is blooming. The energy is up to the roof. And that has a psychological effect in us. Endorphins are everywhere. I mean, just think about it from a testosterone perspective. You have gone through all the winter. You haven't even seen a neck because everybody goes out with jackets. But in the springtime, you start seeing some legs here and there and you go, wow, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like a hormonal perspective, your hormones change every single season. Serotonin gets produced at a higher intensity. Yeah. Dopamine, there is more to look for. So creating routines that enhance that hormonal response at the ideal level that you're seeking is essentially what I do at the seasonal movement, is understanding this at a deep level and saying, what is that? How can we create the right mix of hormones and neurotransmitters every single season of the year? Why? Because there are patterns that we can recognize. In the winter, we isolate a little more. There is less dopamine because, there is less things to do. We spend more time indoors. Yeah. The lighting, we absorb less lighting. Even the fact of walking outdoors barefoot, which grounds you, you don't do any of that. That behavior completely changes. So bringing that to a behavioral level, understanding it at a high level and creating the right mix season by season, that is what got me excited. And I'm like, wow, if I can figure a method that I can plug somebody into and guide them step by step, they can create their own routine, specifically to their own biology and to their own environment, which is constantly changing. So when you hear a YouTube video that says, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, like this is the ideal routine, this is what go-getters do, that has no consideration whatsoever on who you are, what Absolutely. Your own biology is, which is unique for everybody. And it has no consideration about where in the world you live and which season are you experiencing. An example will be, wake up at 5 a.m, go to the gym, by 8 a.m, somebody wake up, you already conquered the world. That can work on a season, but how can you go to sleep perhaps by 10 p.m. in the summertime when it gets dark by, 11 o'clock? It's just biologically incapable. Your body doesn't produce melatonin when there is light outside. So you go to bed because you saw the video and you say, well, if I want to wake up by 5, I have to go to sleep by 10 so I can sleep my good 7-8 hours. But you are in bed and your head is just spinning around. Why? You are full of cortisol. You don't have enough melatonin to just close your eyes and hit the sack, right? So what we can do is let's go to sleep late. Let's wake up late in the summer. That's kind of like my summer routine. And then in the winter, I'm naturally wired to go to sleep earlier because, it's dark outside by 4 p.m. You have 4 or 5 hours of melatonin production. The natural thing for any human is to feel like they want to go to sleep, unless there is some bad behaviors in the mix, which I'm not going to get into, like your phone, like lighting. I'm not going to get into that. But the natural reaction is to go to sleep early in the winter, wake up early, and then in the summer is the other way around. So I realized I had to create different routines for different seasons.
Yeah, so this is really good, and I can relate as well, by the way, to a lot of what people out there, the external noise, the people saying, if you're a go-getter, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to make this amount of money, or if you want to live this life, follow this, do that sort of thing. You're absolutely right. There's no sort of human element behind it, understanding the person on a deeper level. But I really, really just want to say, Ruben, the way you spoke about the nature connection of like the roots, the leaves, all that stuff, I really like that, actually. That's something that I was kind of gripped in on, especially with that, because it's so true. Just from your perspective, we'll go into like your seasons. I'd love to sort of hear what each season means to you, like what you do, not like go into massive depth, but just sort of like a summary of how you operate in each season. But the way you've spoken about, obviously in the real estate where not many people sort of in the winter. Yeah, absolutely. Because we put our house on the market in the winter and it was very, very quiet. We had a bit of, back and forth. I mean, I'm not saying people don't view, but, absolutely. In the fitness industry that I've been a part of for quite a lot of time, normally, your Octobers, Novembers and Decembers, which is that, because obviously it's Christmas time, saving up. January is normally where it starts, the curve goes up again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is seasons and cycles, exactly. But just out of all of this life's work experience that you've had, because I can honestly say that you're so passionate about, which I really love, and I can tell the way you talk about it, that it is having an impact on people. But if you could summarize for you personally, in your life with your family, because I know your family's really, important to you, what's been the biggest transformation for you being able to master this more seasonal movement in your life?
Great question. And that's a deep one, because it has truly become who I am. So I have to decompose it a little bit. And this has been perhaps the culmination, what I believe is the purpose of my life. But I have been keeping to work on personal development on many different areas of my life. It's a constant growth cycle. So I have to decompose it and go back. And I remember the old me. The old me was ambitious, was a go-getter, was kind of like trying to meet a quota as fast as I can. And I will go to those sprints and then I will crash. Whether it was a mini cycle leading into a bigger cycle, and then the crash keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the difference was that I didn't realize that right now, the way that I see life and the way that I want to live my life is like a constantly expanding vortex. Let me explain. Life is constantly you are either growing or contracting. There is nothing in the middle where, a tree is either growing or decaying. There is nothing that is the same. We're constantly changing. So I didn't realize at the time, but by doing those big sprints and then crashing, it's like if I'm building a vortex, like I expand, but then I contract. And I'm constantly expanding and contracting. Yeah, over time it grows, but it's kind of miserable, honestly, because you go through a lot of pain when you are in those negative effects. And I didn't realize that what made me actually grow, the upward trend, was fed on cortisol, which is stress.
Mm-hmm.
Which the reason that I crash is because it's, chronic stress.
Yeah.
Your system can't take it anymore. You need a break. So I would live through that for a long period of time. And then I realized, wow, if I find the flow of how my year should look like, and I trust the process, God has me, He's leading me, the doors are going to open at the right time. I do have a strategic vision. I do the work, but I can also enjoy my life. I don't have to be worried, and I don't have to be living in a sprint like all the time. I can create a rhythm that is like a constantly expanding vortex. What I notice is that if I divide it by the season, then I can have a growing season on that specific season, in that specific energy, on that specific environment. And then on the next season, again, by getting ahead, because it gets really practical. That's the thing. It's like I have to, to create step by step to do this in a systematic manner. And I'm planning ahead. What am I going to do in the next 3 months? And it's that simple. It's like, what do you want to do these next 3 months? Look at your environment so you see, look what is convenient, look what is not convenient. If you don't feel like doing it, just don't do it, brother. You can do it 6 months from now. That is actually when that biohack, when that behavior, when that timing actually fits that season. But in this season, there's many other opportunities. Mm-hmm. We're full of biohacks and hacks and this and that you can be doing 100 of them, but we can only be doing 2 of them at the time. So when you identify this is good during this time of the year and this is good during this other time of the year, you can stop regretting not doing it, if that makes any sense. A lot of the pain that we create to ourselves is that I'm not trying hard enough, I'm not doing as much as I can be doing. But when you realize this season, I'm going to commit to this. And it's only going to be a commitment for 3 months. Once I go into the next season, I'm going to look around. I'm going to make sure, I make the new routine fun and convenient. And then I'm going to commit to it for another 3 months. And then I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. What I notice is that is like that expanding vortex. Like you are gaining a little bit of ground in a sustainable manner. That's the key, being sustainable. When you compound that growth over 5, 10, 20 years, that vortex is a lot bigger than if you were just sprinting, contracting, sprint, contraction, grow, contraction, grow, contraction. That is like the biggest change in how I see my life now compared to 10, even 5 years ago. That's the maturement process I had got into.
Yeah. I mean, just that back and forth, that expanding, contracting, I can definitely relate to that in stages of my life. And I'm sure the audience as well will probably even be like, oh, gosh, yeah, you know what, that's sort of like resonating a lot with me. And obviously you've gone through this yourself. You're out the other side. You're now obviously helping people through this. Obviously you've got a wealth of wisdom and the insight's been great. What have you learned most about yourself as a person from actually helping these people?
Wow. The biology, I'm a unique person.
Yeah.
I'm very unique. As we have been talking, Luke, I can kind of see about who you are in a way.
Okay.
And I can tell, we're similar, but at the same time, we're unique. Now, there are patterns. So what is interesting, this has happened recently to me, is that I leverage an AI app that goes into epigenetics, it goes into embryology,
okay.
It goes into chronobiology. Basically, it's like 15 different sciences that by measuring or body ratios, the logarithm is able to find out who you are uniquely by the way that your biology evolved, like by the way that you are born and where you are now, because there are ratios. Mm-hmm. For example, your risk width is not going to change even if you are, bigger or as much as you go to the gym. There's your crane. It's not going to change that much. So there is science behind this that is, to a degree, I'm just using that as my own personal anecdote. That's what we do in our coaching program. Again, our coaching program is based on epigenetics. So again, understand your genes, your biology at the highest possible level, understand your environment at the highest possible level, and create a routine that aligns them so that you can be the best version of yourself right now. When you say what has changed for me, is those two things. We have talked a lot about the understanding of the environment and how seasons change, but who am I? Knowing that I'm different than Luke makes a big difference. And this is the key. The question is, did it took you a week? Did it took you a month? Did it create a crisis? Did it create a roller coaster? Or you did it right ahead of time? Okay, great. The same with your biology. You learn about yourself. It's like, Ruben is a morning person. Like, I like waking up in the morning and kind of going. But then in the back of my mind, I always had this question. Hustle culture tells me that you got to grind until like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. How come I can't do that? Why can't I do that? So our brain kind of picks the best parts and then matches the worst parts to ourselves. Knowing who you are from a methodical scientific process removes that. Because now I can dive into my own uniqueness. Okay, I now know that I thrive on dopamine. What is the next thing that is going to keep me motivated? That's just who I am. I can't change that. I'm not going to beat myself down anymore. Yeah. I can be proactive and avoid just, following everything that kind of is a shiny object thing. But I'm built on dopamine the same way that I'm a morning person. And by 7 to 8 p.m., I have to rest because my nervous system is inflamed. So you can apply this on every area. And what has changed for me is knowing myself to a deep level, allowing myself to be myself, and letting go of the rest.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So you spoke about the word unique. I think this is brilliant because I do find a lot of people are, as we know, and you'll find this probably in your coaching program, where people are probably a bit conditioned, maybe got that societal condition, maybe from parents, even loved ones, family, friends. So for you, what's your unique ability, Ruben? What did you discover through finding out who you truly are?
Like I say, I'm purpose driven. I wouldn't be doing this if it was for money. I wouldn't be talking about the seasonal movement if I didn't truly believe that I am uniquely conditioned to spread that one message because I get it at the level that nobody else gets it because of my own story.
Yeah, I like it. I love the fact that you're very purpose-driven, like you say. You're all in on this. So what's next then for you? What's the drive with the seasonal movement to help people out?
Rich, we are in a moment in our business development that we just want to get the message out there. It's that simple. And just growing the audience that finds benefit. So I can truly talk to them, learn more from that, creating a community. My goal with this is get this, not because of ego, like large, that's not because of that. But I truly want to make a dent and I want to positively impact our culture. I want to positively impact, leave a mark saying, wow, this guy's gone, and then people will know, oh yeah, that's just your environment, like, oh, like the seasons change and you change and this is what you do. Make it second nature in our culture. So in order to achieve that, we have to do a lot of reps for a long time. And we have to do a lot of reps in front of a lot of people. So the next step is continue to do what we're doing it and doing it for a long time. Get better at it. Every single rep, we are learning something. And that will just have a ripple effect that once I'm gone, the next generation can look better than how I showed up to this world. I want to leave this a better place than how I found it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're leaving that legacy. You've obviously you've got great skills, Ruben. You share it with such an open heart. You can tell that you genuinely want to help people, which I think in itself anyway, that naturally is going to magnetize people towards you. But just in terms of yourself now, then obviously you're going through this reach. If somebody was sort of listening in today and they feel that they struggle in the seasons, they actually don't know who they are in the seasons. This sort of like, gosh, and you're saying like you've got these different modes, or like you thrive off dopamine, like, and they're going, where would I even create more of this awareness? What would you, if you were sat opposite them, even if it was just a couple minutes having a bit of conversation, what would you say would be the best place to start?
Everything starts with awareness. I mean, literally, like that's the foundation. Everything, it can be in front of our faces. And if we're not aware, we're not going to be looking for it. We're going to miss it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing my best to put content on YouTube that is relatable and that increases that awareness. We have our YouTube channel, social media. I'm doing my best on every single channel we can. We don't know how this is going to evolve, but what I'm really excited about is our coaching program because of that. Because it's just a step-by-step process to go from not aware, perhaps aware of the problem, and also aware that this is the solution of that problem, but that's where you start, and then mastering that at a high level. So I'm extremely excited for that. And the way we do it is by doing seasonal projects. So again, the season theme comes in place because this is essentially, a step-by-step guided process. Every single day of the week, you get a little bit of content from the general perspective. Then we help you identify the key behaviors. We help you understand the app and how it works. So what we want to do is allow you to understand yourself at the highest level you will be able to have it, and then understanding your environment at the highest possible level. And the reason why that's important, it has to be done on a framework. I can't show up on YouTube and tell you, this is what you're experiencing right now, because depending where you live, and depending if you are, again, just to keep saying the morning or afternoon person or whatever, there's a lot of detail that we go into that. I can't be talking to you directly. I'm not going to make that mistake. I don't want to, again, be driving generic advice out there. I can increase your awareness on a YouTube video, but you find that by a guided step-by-step process that gets you from unaware to mastering that. And we do it by the seasons. I give you a kind of once a week, we do a masterclass on what is happening right now in the environment from this specific behavior. We focus on the 6 most important behaviors, which are your sleep, your exercise, your nutrition, your outdoor connection, your nurturing, loving relationships, and novelty. And we help you create a routine that is convenient and is the ideal mix of those one season at a time. So it is like a framework that once you figure it out, it becomes second nature. And the key thing to understand is that this is a cycle. It might sound like, hey, you do have to do some of the work. If you don't, you're going to continue to experience and be where you are because it's going to repeat itself. In how long? 1 year from now. 1 year from now, your environment is going to look very similar to what it looks like right now. It repeats. And that's what I realized. Wow, this is meaningful. I have to figure this out because it's not like a one-time event. There is a pattern. It's just kind of hard to see because it's such a long term of time. But those ups and downs follow a specific pattern. So what we want to do is to master that.
Yeah, so this is really good. I mean, obviously, like you say, that there is substance to what it is you're doing. I know you can't really dictate, this is where's the best place to start. Because I think what you just said about the awareness, I think absolutely. I think that's if you know deep inside of you, something's not quite right. Like you say, you're a bit contracted. You're not sort of expanding in any way. That might be a key sort of part to kind of grow or move forward. So if for you sort of working, obviously I know this program is sort of is it in its infancy, did you say, like 6 months or something like that?
Yeah Yeah, we have so essentially we open up a waiting list and we're going to be launching like our summer project. So we do it by the season. So now you mentioned practical first place to start. I want to make available like guide on the description and it's for the two areas that we pay attention to, which is your biology. So I have a guide for you to kind of see, okay, this is how this works. This is how I am, and to show you that area so you can see it in more detail. And then I have one from an environmental perspective, which from the environment, what you want to understand is how the lighting changes throughout the year in your specific location. So I have a guide that it says, go to this website, plug in this time, you download the spreadsheet that shows you the days that are the most important. So which are those days? When the season starts throughout the year, plus daylight savings time. Daylight savings time is a big one from that environmental routine perspective. So those are great places to start, and I'm going to make those available in the description. That is really what we go through at the beginning of a program. That is where it will increase your awareness and you will realize, is this real? Like the summer days are 1.5 times longer from a sunlight perspective than the winter. And it will create that, wow, like there's a big dramatic difference here. So
yeah, no, I respect that a lot. Thank you for that, because I do think yes, for the guys sort of listening in, it might be a great place to just have exposure, I guess. I know there's more information out there, but obviously you've got a wealth of experience with it. It might just give them a bit more, right, okay, and be able to be more aware, like I say, aware of the problem, which is massive, especially in where how much noise there is today.
So becoming a dad back in 2023 has definitely been challenging at times. Being on this entrepreneur journey, having multiple businesses, it can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. One way to kick off your personal development journey is nestled in the heart of Montenegro. Syro Boca Place offers more than just a lifestyle experience. It is the ultimate active lifestyle hotel. Whether you're looking to rejuvenate in this state-of-the-art recovery lab, take a dip in the 25-meter half Olympic pool with a retractable roof, or explore the stunning trails of Boca Bay, there is something for everyone. And if you're like me, who wants to stay active and experience what is on offer, so if you're looking to elevate your travel experience and feel better than when you arrived, to get in on the experience, head over to www.syrohotels.com.
So, Ruben, we are actually getting towards the end of the episode, my friends, which I think there's a lot of stuff that guys can take away from this. I'm pretty damn sure, which is great. So I do ask this question to every single guest on the show. You've actually said the word a couple of times, which is good, which is master. So I'd love to know from your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
And I think you have said it a few times as well, which is great. Is the rhythm, like what is your ideal rhythm? What is your ideal flow? I know the flow is being used a lot.
Yeah.
Nowadays. And there's a lot to do with neurochemistry. So from a practical perspective, what is your rhythm? It's essentially throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your season, and throughout your year. Those are the 4 cycles that continually repeat themselves. When you can create that balance throughout your day, you're essentially mastering your own unique rhythm, which is just unique to you. So once you get in that, then it's just a matter of mastering your week. But usually we have front-loaded weeks or back-loaded weeks. I need to rest towards the end of my week. Like I already know that about myself. If I push for too long, too many weeks in a row, I kind of burn out, So understanding your cycles, your day, your week, your season, and then your year. That's how you master your rhythm.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's sort of the 2 key points is like mastering your uniqueness. It's sort of like I've heard a bit of that. Unique, mastery, rhythm. I think that's brilliant. So thank you for sharing that, Ruben. That's amazing. Where would you say is the best place for people to find you and connect, or even maybe send you a message if that's viable?
Yeah. Again, on the description, I'm going to share the links that we have to all our social medias. I do my best to see every single message and reply back to it, whether it's up to you if you're connected on Facebook, if you're connected on Instagram. But if there is one place that I check all of the time, is our Facebook community. That is the one that I'm constantly replying back immediately, and it's free. That is just where we kind of post the most important aha moments that we don't post in other places. This is like a more deeper personal place there. So just send me a text and I will get back to you, whichever way you prefer. But the Facebook group is probably the one you're going to get a faster response.
Absolutely. Well, no, listen, make sure you send that over to us. We'll include it in the show notes, and we'll make sure that the guys can 100% connect with you, Ruben. So, look, I just want to say, from myself, thank you for sharing your passion, your story, and having this space with us today.
Thank you so much, Luke. I look forward connecting with everyone that found this interesting, and I hope that we have created a space where you have been transforming an hour.
Absolutely, definitely. There's some great things you've shared that will definitely have an impact. So again, thank you for that.
You're welcome, Luke. Thank you so much too for the opportunity.